so much, and thanks for all those that are attending or watching this later on in its recorded format. As we said before, my name is Nick Ratcliffe, and I'm an active travel officer with the charity Sustrans, and I work in partnership and funded through Cornwall Council. So first of all, thank you all for attending. I think I probably said that, and I believe it's your Love Our Planet week. And I understand that 7 campuses have joined together for this event, which is really exciting. I've never done something like this, so I'm really chuffed to be asked. Thank you ever so much, Cornwall College. You're welcome to make notes if you want. I won't be sharing the PowerPoint, but I will be sharing a set of useful links from this presentation. There's a PDF to the chat box at the end, and I'll give it to the college. And there's a load of stuff on there that might be of use. So what is Sustrans? It's a little composite word, I suppose, a made-up word. It's sustainable transport. Sus and the trans gives you the name of our charity. So I'd like to do a quick introduction to Sustrans so you get an idea of what it is. You might have heard of us, you might not. It doesn't really matter of what we are and what we do. So we're the charity making it easier for people to walk and cycle. We're probably best known for the National Cycle Network, and that is a UK-wide network of signed paths and routes for walking, cycling and wheeling. So you may have seen the red, white and blue signs about, and these are for the NCN. And I'll mention a bit more about the routes later on in the presentation. But what I did want to touch on was that we are so much more than just building paths and routes. So we also work in schools. So this was one of the primary schools I worked with over in Truro. It was part of an event called the Big Pedal, which is day 2 of today, actually, for this year, which is an inter-school, a nationwide inter-school travel to school event. So the stuff we do in schools, we run things like playground-based sessions for cycling or scooting, and we do doctor bike days, so where we do sort of basic servicing and bike checks, so that pupils and parents have got the sort of peace of mind that they're travelling in, if they're choosing to travel in by bike, and their bike's in a good condition. So we also work in colleges. I've worked in Cornwall College in the past, and we run road shows and workshops. So in some of the photos here, we've got staff learning puncture repair. We've got students and staff looking at some of the literature and routes and how they might get into college. And the top left photo is quite a natty bit of kit. It's a bike generator that's human powered. It produces 240 volts, and we can run things off it. In this case, it's a bubble machine. And so we also work in both workplaces. So this is a cycle to work road show at the local hospital, where we did security marking for free, bike checks for free. We do reduced price kit sales, advice, information, those sorts of things. And we do that as a monthly road show at one of the local hospitals. And we also work in the community. So we run stalls at fairs and events. And in all of these settings, we promote and encourage active travel, whether it's schools, workplaces, or in the community. And I'll come on to active travel in a minute, because that's a phrase that keeps getting bandied around. And Sustrans is all over the place. We're in all 4 nations. And as I said before, we're in education, workplace, community settings. And there's 3 of us down in Cornwall, embedded with Cornwall Council, and there's offices also in Devon as well. Okay, so these are some of the biggest challenges of our time. I don't think I really need to explain them. They're in the news a lot of the time. And I suppose more the question is, what can we do about it? Which is sort of the premise of this short talk. So what is active travel? For a concise definition, I refer to our good friend Wikipedia, which came up with: active travel is the transportation of people through non-motorized means based around human physical activity. So that's walking, it's cycling, and it's also wheeling. Wheeling is any mode of transport, such as wheelchairs, mobility scooters, adapted bikes, hand cycles, scooters, roller skates, prams, all of those things. So active travel encompasses all of the things you can see on the screen. But for the purpose of this short talk, we'll be mainly concentrating on walking and cycling. And what presentation would be complete without a mention of the current pandemic? So the current government guidance for all commuters is work from home if you can, avoid public transport if possible. If you cannot work from home and have to travel for work, you should consider first cycling, walking or driving to help ensure there's enough capacity for those who need to travel on public transport to do so safely. And it's interesting that cycling and walking are up there. So it just shows, I think, the sort of the importance that the government puts on these modes of travel. So it's quite encouraging. So what types of journeys can be active? So I would say start with commute. So that's getting to work or education. Leisure, so that's for enjoyment, just for the fun of it. Exercise, so we're thinking about keeping fit. Utility, which is a bit of an unusual word, but I'd say that's any necessary trip that you might make, for example, shopping, errands, those sorts of things. Holidays, so it could be based around walking or cycling. So really, in essence, it's almost any journey within reason. And there's a little acronym I quite like, and my brother who manages bank managers told me this one when he's training them. And he said, so really you've got to be thinking about why might you ask, would I bother with all this active travel malarkey? Why would I travel this way? And sure, what's in it for me? So over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explain why traveling actively is of benefit to us all. And some of you might be doing this already, and some of you it might be new to, some of you might be curious, just interested in what it's all about. And I hope you will take something from this talk. So let's go straight in with some health facts and statistics. They're always good to back up whatever a talk might be about. So according to the NHS, many adults in the UK spend more than 7 hours a day, 7 hours, sitting or lying down, and this typically increases with age to 10 hours or more. The Health Service warns that spending this much time sitting down increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancers, and other forms of premature death. A study of 1.2 million people revealed that sitting was responsible for almost 4% of deaths, and research shows 12% of all deaths in the UK are linked to sedentary behaviour, which I think is pretty shocking, personally. And I suppose this takes us back to the inactivity slide earlier on of the man lying on the sofa. But what can be done about it? So here are some benefits of travelling actively, just to sort of put the case, if you like, for why you might consider doing it. So the NHS and Sustrans recommend that adults should, where possible, use their commutes to keep active. And some workplaces have introduced lunchtime walks and cycle rides for staff because they can see the importance of that, and also recognise not everyone can travel actively. Often in education settings, such as your own, staff and students are travelling some considerable distance, so it's recognising that as well. And all of the benefits of active travel also apply to sort of general physical activity, but changing to an active commute is a great way of using time that you'd otherwise have been sedentary, so sat in your car or potentially on the bus. And a little known fact, one just to keep hold of, is research shows that pollution levels are higher for those in vehicles than those cycling and walking, which probably goes against what a lot of people think is the case, because you are effectively in a little box filtering air and sort of circulating it. But looking at the health benefits, you might ask if something like this, why isn't the NHS prescribing it? Well, it is. It's called social prescribing, and it involves helping patients to improve their health, their well-being and social welfare by connecting them with community services, so offering things like led walks and rides. So it's recognised within our own NHS. So that was looking at us. If we look at the wider world, road transport's responsible for 20% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions, and many of those journeys, those road transport journeys, are under 2 miles and feasibly could be swapped for active journeys. And this would result in, as it shows on the slide, reduced air pollution, improved local air quality, and obviously global air quality, a reduction in fossil fuel use, and less traffic on the roads, less motorised traffic. And walking is the least polluting way of travelling, followed closely behind by cycling. So obviously there's the cost of moving ourselves around. There's a cost to most things, and there's definitely a cost to travelling. 25% of all car journeys in the UK are under 2 miles. So if all these journeys were walked instead, it would save 16 million in fuel, and the population would burn an extra 3.6 billion calories. There's a nice little statistic for you. What I quite like with walking, and I think in this sort of recent lockdown, really, I've really discovered the joy of it. Whereas before, I would always personally, I think, well, I'm just going to get on my bike. It's a lot quicker. But I've just discovered a new joy in walking. It costs nothing. I really like that, apart from the cost of shoes. Running a bike can be inexpensive. Obviously, with the added benefit, you can get a lot further on a bike than by foot in the same amount of time. And we'll look at the benefits of walking and cycling specifically in a minute. And not having to find a parking space avoids a lot of cost, and it avoids a lot of stress. So it's also a health benefit, because I think we've all been there trying to find a parking spot and you can't, and you miss it, your appointment's about to start, or your work's about to start. So those sort of things are avoided. And some employers as well, and I know before the presentation we were talking about the Cycle to Work scheme for employers. So this is a salary sacrifice scheme if you've not heard about it before, and you can save 25 to 40% on a new bike through that government scheme, which a lot of employers are signing up to. So what's in it for me? Walking and cycling. There's, having looked at the last few slides, there's quite a few things that mean there is a benefit to it. So quite a lot, actually, what's in it for me. So I'm just going to look at a bit more detail at the specific benefits of walking. Then we'll do the same with cycling. And this image and some of the others in this presentation were designed by local college students as part of a Sustrans engagement engagement work. And I'm quite pleased how they've turned out. And I'm very impressed with the work I've done with local colleges. So with walking, all you need is comfortable footwear, and knowing the weather in Devon and Cornwall, sun hat, waterproof coat, umbrella, all of the above on any given day. About a third of all journeys we take, so this is all total of all journeys, are less than a mile, which takes about 20 minutes to walk. So, or even quicker if you're a brisk walker. So that's something to consider. And I'd say walking is about pleasure as much as the destination, as about us getting to the place. And this is what I've discovered recently. And this has become, I think, a lot more poignant with our increasingly sedentary outdoor lifestyles. In terms of health, for adults, just 30 minutes of walking 5 days a week dramatically cuts the risk of developing those major killers, really: heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and some cancer. So it's quite some statistic to hold on to. And the best news is that walking burns as many calories as jogging over the same distance. And because it's a low impact exercise, it won't stress your knees, I should say. But as it's weight bearing, it helps to prevent osteoporosis. So it's a real win-win with walking. And I think, as many of us know, walking also helps to improve mood and self-esteem. So one of the things I really like about walking personally, it can be enjoyed at the same time as listening to music or a podcast, or just enjoying what's around you, watching wildlife or the surroundings, or if you're walking with other people, chatting with friends or with people you meet on the way. Something you don't necessarily get in the same way if you're traveling in vehicles. And if you're worried about getting lost, if you're trying new routes, don't worry. There's an incredible array of free mapping apps so that you can find a route that's suitable for you. And I'll look at this in more detail in a little bit further on in the presentation. So let's have a look in a bit more detail at the specific benefits of cycling. This is one of my favourite Sustrans posters. We do like wordplay at Sustrans, and I would say a lot of the benefits of cycling are very similar to those of walking. getting on your bike is one of the easiest ways to get fit, I suppose, alongside walking, and it's a lot cheaper than gym membership. Cycling raises your metabolic rate, so it helps to keep the weight off. It tones the thighs and bottom, and can tone your stomach muscles too. So a health benefit in terms of regular cyclists, they're seen as, their research has shown, they're as fit as an average person 10 years younger, and on average live 2 years longer than non-cyclists. And it's something that you gradually chip away at if you're new to cycling. We'll look at this in a bit. It's about manageable targets, really, not expecting to cycle that 20-mile commute to work every day from the get-go. It's about being sort of realistic, but we'll look at that in a little bit. So cycling offers a unique freedom to get where you want. This is something I love about getting on a push bike. And as I've said before, about a third of all journeys we take are less than a mile, which takes about, depending how quick you go, 8 minutes to cycle. If you're on an e-bike, a bit quicker. If you're going downhill, even quicker. But it's not. It doesn't take long to get, a mile. 1,600 meters is nothing. And in terms of those that like their sort of science, their figures, cycling's efficient. It uses 0.03 megajoules of energy per kilometre, and this is 70 times more energy efficient than the average car. So you might be sat there thinking, oops, that's not it. It's all well and good to say to travel actively, but how do I get started? So sometimes when we're making a change, it can be difficult to get started. So I always say, when I'm talking to people in whatever setting, is go for small steps. So maybe start by swapping one journey a week. Small steps are a good place to start a bigger journey. We've all got to start somewhere. And it's also worth saying at this point that it's definitely, it's not a case of car bad, active travel good. It's as simplistic as that. I think particularly living in rural counties, I think it's quite different when you live in a metropolitan area with very good infrastructure and public transport and a lot less barriers. But I suppose what I would add to that is I like to ask the question to myself: can this journey be done differently? And if I don't involve picking up the car keys, then this will help to reduce the number of local journeys made by motor vehicle. But it really is a case of choosing the right tool for the right job. So it could mean picking up your walking shoes, it could mean a bike helmet, or in fact picking up your car keys. I suppose it's about challenging yourself and not always necessarily doing what you've always done. And then other ways of making a change or of getting started really is why not try it with a friend? Holding each other accountable can help us to stick in with plans. I know when I used to do a lot of running on a cold, icy morning, I'd think, well, I'm not going to go out. I knew that I'd arranged to meet up with a training partner. So you do it. You hold yourself to what arrangements you've made. So that's another good thing is working with someone else. And it's good just to give yourself a pat on the back, a reward. So you could choose a really nice route, something as simple as that, or you could treat yourself to something with the money saved from driving, and it soon adds up. So this is really a sort of a follow-on from the last slide. These are sort of top tips for going car-free and for planning journeys. So as I said before, baby steps are fine, and we've all got to start somewhere. Little and often is a good way to start. Your fitness levels will improve quicker than you think. And I always say, if you're riding a bike, there's no shame in pushing. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You've not failed. It's just getting over the thing that there's an issue at the time, which is that hill. And a colleague of mine, when she first started cycling in Cornwall, she couldn't get up the smallest of slopes. This is in her own words, but she quickly managed to sort of tackle bigger hills as her fitness and her confidence grew. So it's not a case of giving up. Just keep sort of chipping away. And if you're doing it with a friend or buddy, remember it is between it's you and yourself. It's no one else's business. It's you know, if you no one, you're not being judged on some sort of scheme. It's up to you how you approach sort of traveling actively. And you might want to consider getting some training. We'll look at cycle confidence and training and sort of guided rides a little bit further on. And I've just applied PMA, which is positive mental attitude. So looking at making change, looking at making change a positive rather than a chore. Sort of, it's really a case of there's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong kit. That's a way of sort of approaching it. And having your kit handy, whether it's a bike helmet or your shoes or your waterproof or whatever it is, so there's one less barrier to getting to where you want to be. Okay, I said about routes. So this is how to get from A to B, and we're quite blessed down in Devon and Cornwall. The National Cycle Network, this map shows the extent of it. The NCN, or National Cycle Network, is a UK-wide network of signed paths and routes, and they're for walking, cycling and wheeling. So it's made up of quiet roads, so they will have motor vehicles on, and lanes, and also traffic-free routes. Down this slide shows sort of Devon and Cornwall route. We've got Route 3, which goes from Land's End all the way up to Bristol, and all the little sort of spurs that come off of it. And I'll show you in a minute where you can find the mapping. In fact, here. So there's plenty of fantastic route planning resources. Many of them are free, and here are a few of my faves. So the NCN uses Ordnance Survey mapping, so the paper maps that a lot of us will be familiar with. And then Cycle Streets and Open Streets use something called open source mapping. So this can be changed by users. So it makes it very, very current. And Komoot is also uses open street mapping. It's a really good route planning tool, particularly for longer rides, but for any ride. And these are all free. Most of them have got apps as well as websites. But as importantly, really, it's worth noting that the best source of knowledge is often people who are already doing this, so sort of friends, colleagues, and ask them, which way they go when we're looking at routes. So if you're in Devon, there's interactive cycle mapping available on the Devon County Council website, and there's downloadable town and city cycle maps. So they're for Barnstable, Exeter, Cranbrook, Exmouth, Newton Abbot, Tiverton, Culm Valley, Totnes and Dartington, and there's the web links, and I'll share the PDF at the end. Lists all these, and this is the an example. This is the Exeter cycling guide and map. And then in Cornwall, the interactive mapping shows public rights of way, as it does in Devon, and cycle trails, as well as many other layers you can select for the county. And then the Cornish Way and the active travel maps I'll just touch on in the next couple of slides. The Cornish Way, so this is a network of 270 miles of interlinking routes across the county, and it uses a lot of that Route 3, which is the Land's End up to Bude and on to Bristol route. And active travel maps we produced for Bodmin, Camborne, Poole, Redruth and O'Logan, for Falmouth and Penryn, Hale and St Ives, Saltash, St Austell and Truro, and these all show sort of key locations where you'd want in any of those towns, local shops, green spaces, how to get to them by bus, by bike, by foot, and these are all downloadable on the council's website as well. So I thought I'd put together a few useful links for if you're looking after your bike, and also if you wanted more sort of cycle confidence, cycle training. The active travel toolkit we put together, Sustrans put together and hosted by Cornwall Council on their website. And there's a number of things in that look at really sort of your basics of cycle maintenance, repairing a puncture, adjusting gears, adjusting brakes, those sort of things you might want to have a try at. And another one I particularly like is Bicycology, which is an activist website that has some really fantastic detailed DIY sheets as well on bike maintenance. And then with cycle training, Bikeability, which is the new name for what was cycle proficiency, and doesn't just cover schools, it covers sort of adults as well. You can find a course near to you. You can find a trainer. If you're lucky enough to be in Devon, they offer free cycle training to adults. And Let's Ride is hosted by British Cycling, and that's free guided rides, and including breeze rides. If anyone's heard of those are specifically for women as well, which are very well attended, very well received. Just whizzing through. So it's about walking and cycling. It's not just about that. I thought I'd mention public transport. If you want to add an extra bit of active travel to a public transport journey, why not get off a stop early? No, that's probably not ideal on a train, but on a bus, you can just add in a bit more of the active element of walking, and getting to public transport involves active travel at both ends, inevitably, walking to the stop or to the station. And the one that I use very regularly, or a website for planning public transport journeys, is Travelline Southwest, which is fantastic, and sometimes it has real time as well. If the route is a real time route, so you can actually see your bus coming on the app. And Park and Stride. So I thought it'd be useful to talk briefly about some other hybrid active travel options. So Park and Stride in a nutshell is drive some of the way, walk the rest. So the advantages are you get some exercise, so there's less worry about parking, and congestion can be reduced, and you can discover local routes by using route planning apps or maps. So that's one just to think about. If you do live that far away that walking or cycling to the place to work or wherever you're going isn't really feasible, this is a way of sort of mixing it up a bit and not all sort of filling up the same site, if you like. Car share. So some journeys in the rural community we live in are unavoidable. But next time you're out, it's something I do sometimes, particularly is obviously at the start and end of the day, sort of count 20, 30, 40 cars and just see how many have got one person in. It's not exclusive to Cornwall and Devon, it's a nationwide thing. So car share looks at trying to sort of reduce that single occupancy, and the benefits are you save money, there's less cars on the road, all the things that I think we can work out. So both Devon and Cornwall have bought into car share, so they've got a lift share website which anyone can subscribe to, can join up to for free. There's things sort of informal car sharing. Pasty Connection's a great one on Facebook. Blah Blah Cars is sort of a commercial version of lift share, sorry. And then there's car clubs, which are when you can hire cars by the hour, and there's a number of those in towns across Devon and Cornwall as well, so it's worth looking up those options. I think I've rattled through, and I think that is me done. There's all of the links I've put into the PDF, which I will put in the chat in a minute and share. And I assume you're all there. All I can hear is silence, but you're muted. So I'll come back into the room.
Hello there. Thank you very much. That was a brilliant presentation there. Thanks for that, Nick. Just opening up now to everybody. You're ready for questions and answers, is that right?
Yes, far away. If anyone's got any.
If anyone's got any questions, I think probably the best way to handle it is to do the little hands up icon. So the first person is Sim. So did you want to ask a question, Sim?
Yeah, no, I'd be. I know Nick covers Cornwall, but we have got a campus in Devon at Bigton. So it'd be really good if we could get somebody to come and talk to us, particularly about routes, because routes is one of the tricky things, I think, if you live in a rural area, because you're talking about large distances, but also there are very few off-road purpose-built cycle paths for us in the rural areas, and we have to cross major main roads or even cycle along these major routes at peak time. So I was really interested to hear that you're able to help with the route planning.
Sure. I mean, our remit is Cornwall, but I know there are some offices in Devon, and I'm sure it's something we could look at. Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? It's all well and good, you know. I had in the back of the mind talking through, saying, yeah, do this, it's great, you know, simple as this. But the question that often comes up, well, you know, I don't feel safe, and that's totally understandable. We don't have the infrastructure that a lot of European countries have. We're playing catch up, but sometimes it is like with the National Cycle Network, it's trying to find those quieter routes, and find them at the times of day where they're not, they don't become rat runs. It's not an easy one,
No.
but I think the more people that are cycling, I think I'm talking about cycling here, because walking, you know, often
It's not really.
it's often on pavements. You don't necessarily walk.
We don't have pavements up
No,
in Bicton.
no, I've been before. No, I can picture it.
But no, I am interested because there is a route and it would be interesting to talk to somebody from your organisation, because I know that there's a route that's a public footpath, and of course I'm not allowed to cycle along a public footpath. So it'd be great if we could work with other, because this would make a real difference to my route and probably the route for quite a lot of other people, by making it into a dual
like a shared
path.
Yeah, bridle way or shared path. And yeah, I think with where I've had sort of come across that before, it's getting the countryside team within your council involved, getting your local member involved, you know, your local councillor, sort of Sustrans as well, and almost sort of finding a bit of a groundswell of other people that say, yes, we want this. And these things do take a while, but they're not unachievable, I would say.
Thank you. Really interesting. Thank you, Nick.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks for that. I think Rebecca Rid's got a question as well. So do you want to go next, Becky?
Thank you, and thanks, Nick. That was a really enjoyable presentation. I've got a few questions, really. First, just to pick up on what Sim was saying there, do you have any advice in terms of strategies for lobbying for safer routes from Sustrans? Because that, like you said, it's not going to be a straightforward approach, is it? It's going to require several different companies and support networks.
Yes. Is this within either county?
Yes, because both have campuses that would benefit from that.
Yeah, I can only really talk for Cornwall, but I know there's with the team that I'm embedded in is the transport strategy team, and approaching. So they're all about creating routes for walking and cycling, and that's within Cornwall Council, and sort of approaching them, because I think often if they're not aware of routes, then it won't go on the sort of almost the wish list for when funding does become available. So that will be my first port of call, and that's connecting Cornwall at cornwall.gov.uk. I can send you that.
Brilliant.
And that'll be a first part, really engaging with ourselves. I mean, the stuff that I do is behaviour change rather than infrastructure, but we have got an infrastructure manager who deals more with the stuff on the ground. We deal with getting people to use routes and to travel actively. But there is a crossover, and I guess really you'll especially with the May 6th elections, your local councillors, because they be hopefully very interested, because they, you know, you as the college at those particular sites within their wards, whether it's town council or Cornwall Devon council, should be there for yourselves. So that would be part of it as well. And I think, like I said to Sim, is try and find other sort of like people that are like-minded that would you know. So it's not just the college asking for it, or be you know, a large organisation. There's others that are sort of lobbying for routes. I think that'd probably be that's where I'd start.
Brilliant, that's really helpful. Thank you, Nick. And then leading on from that, I loved your idea of park and stride, but obviously you need to be mindful of what you're advising isn't causing any other difficulties in different areas. Yeah. So I was wondering if you had any advice on how to locate suitable parking that you could recommend for a park and stride scheme.
No, absolutely. In that, on the Cornwall Council, on the active travel page, in the active travel toolkit, there's a whole thing on park and stride, and it is focused on schools, but a lot of the principles are the same. So things like not suggesting a named road, because suddenly then everyone's going to be in that named residential road. So things like 5 or 10 minute walk zones, there's tools you can use with maps which will sort of draw a circle on a map that outside of that is 10 minutes. Just being mindful though that would then be showing specific places people might want to park, and often it's residential areas.
That's what I was thinking. I don't want to put any further implications down the line.
So what we've done in other instances is working with local sort of community centres, churches, supermarkets, even in some instances, particularly at the start and end of the day. And I guess it's slightly different thinking of it, because with schools it's just being dropped off, but with colleges it will be parking your car there. And I know, say over in Truro, they have issues with students in parking in 3 milestones. So it's a little bit more tricky, but I think that guide would be a starting point. But if you can find somewhere that has a car park not used in the day, that's probably it's a good place to start, I think. And it might be that it actually works better in primary and secondary schools than it does where you effectively, you're a workplace, aren't you, really, with students as if you see it as that, and they will be leaving vehicles as staff would all day. So I'll have to think on that one.
Okay, that's greatly appreciated. Thanks, Nick. And then, sorry to hog you. My final question is that it was really lovely to see the posters that were produced with Sustrans through the work with other colleges. And so I was wondering if there's any future projects that possibly Cornwall College students might be able to come involved in the future with Sustrans.
I think it is, and I know we have worked with yourselves at the Poole campus, and I wouldn't say it's outside the sort of realms of possibility that we could do it again, just depending where our focus is next, where the council want us to work. But if you keep in touch, we can definitely look at that. One of my colleagues sort of covers some of the workplaces and schools in Camborne and Redruth. So that's quite possible. And I know we've done a very similar project before in the past, actually, producing stuff with your design students, similar to the stuff in the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's been a great help.
Guys, I was just hoping to field a question myself, if that's okay.
Yep.
If there's no other questions, I noticed early on in your presentation that you were talking about the bike servicing. It might be something you concentrate on with primary schools, but is that something you've ever explored working with colleges at all? Yes.
Yeah, no, it is. We have. I know in the past we've done it with Cornwall College at the Poole campus and similar over in Truro. And I think it is the mainstay of a lot of what we do. So you've got the confidence that your bike's in one bit and it's free. It's not a full service, but we'll check the bike over and we can replace some sort of small parts as well. So it's something we definitely do with colleges when we are engaged with them. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. I just wanted to, because obviously speaking for myself with cycling, that is the one thing I remember when I first started that sort of daunted me, is that not really knowing how it all worked and went together and how much I could do myself and how much I needed somebody. So it is useful having that kind of somebody in to kind of explain that. So that's really good. Yeah. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions at all? Nope. Excellent. I think that's great. Thanks ever so much for your time, Nick. Thanks for the presentation, and thank you to everyone for attending.